look into tomorrow and the weekend too.
Thank you so much, Ben. We'll talk to you later. Frank joins us live from Eastman with coverage on the service honoring fallen officer Tim Smith. Frank?
Lori, it's been an emotional day, an emotional week here in Eastman and Dodge County, ever since Saturday night when Officer Smith was shot and killed while answering what seemed to be a routine call. That call took place on Main Street, just a short distance from where we're standing right now, outside of the Dodge County High School. Now, this is where most of the activity was today. This is the place where the funeral took place. Of course, everything started around 9 o'clock tomorrow as far as the ceremonies to honor fallen Officer Smith. The hearse carrying Smith's casket from Stokes Sutherland Funeral Home went through downtown Eastman this morning, ending up at Dodge County High School. Eastman police officer Tim Smith was laid to rest here. Hundreds of people turned out today to pay their respects, to listen to what others had to say about Officer Smith, obviously a man who touched and impacted a whole lot of lives in this community. Yvonne Thomas has more.
Hero, father, and friend. That's how people describe Officer Tim Smith.
He's a true member of Eastman. He's a family man.
Well, he was a good officer from what I could see. He was very kind. He treated everybody fairly and equally. He was just great getting along with people.
Hundreds traveled near and far to honor the fallen officer. Detective Melissa Jones came all the way from New York City.
My mother, she was born and raised here in Eastman, Georgia, right over the train tracks, unfortunately, where the officer lost his life.
When she saw the news about his shooting,
I visioned exactly the location. I've come here so many summers. I spent so much time of my life down here, and we still come back to Eastman.
She said she had to come.
It's a small town, but it means a lot to me. This is where my mother was born and raised, and I had to be here in support of our fellow officers and support of their family.
Detective Jones says gun violence against police officers is getting out of hand.
People tend to think that, you know, they don't realize when a bullet leaves that trigger, you can't take it back, and wherever it hits, that's somebody's life.
It's a life, many said, that's gone too soon.
I hope that family knows that he's with God, and he was a blessing to this work we do down here on this earth, and he's in a better place.
Reporting in Eastman.
Amen.
Yvonne Thomas, 13 WMAZ, Eyewitness News.
It was obvious by the number of people that turned out today inside Dodge County High School, many couldn't even get in, just how many lives Officer Smith impacted. I had a chance to chat with Officer Smith's dad just a few moments ago as he stopped by here, and he said he could not believe the outpouring of support from the community this week to honor his son. Claire Davis also touches on that in our next story about Officer Smith and what he did for this community and for its residents.
He ended his tour of duty here on this earth Saturday, August the 13th, 2016.
The Dodge County High School gymnasium was filled with loved ones saying their final goodbyes to Officer Tim Smith.
That boy knew his hours was limited in the back of that ambulance. The thing he kept telling the EMS workers, tell Chelsea I love her. Tell Chelsea I love her. Make sure you tell her I love her. Every conversation we ever had, he always told me about how beautiful you were to him.
His cousin Chris Rogers gave the eulogy and said Smith wanted to make sure his fiancée, Chelsea Clark, knew she was the last person on his mind.
He always told me about how beautiful you were to him, how good you were to him.
And Rogers says his cousin always provided comic relief.
She's got to love you because you're an ugly joker. And he give me that sideways grin, and he says, I'm the most handsome officer in Dodge County. What you talking about, cousin? That's my cousin.
He says during Wednesday night's family visitation, it wasn't easy seeing Smith's two sons.
I want to say, Landon, Daddy loved you boys like no other. He always wanted the best for you, and he talked about the both of you all the time. He always looked forward to the fishing trips at Mr. Jason's house and the time that he spent with you boys. Daddy was proud of both of you.
Smith's love for helping people carried over into his career, something Rogers says runs in the family.
He followed in my granddaddy's footsteps and then his daddy's footsteps. And I honestly don't think he would have it any other way.
Pastor Dahl McDermott spoke about Smith's dedication as a first responder.
There's too few people out there that are willing to risk the job, the lifestyle, and even the humiliation that comes from some in our world today from serving up front. It is an honorable job. It is a noteworthy that he would take this profession and run with it.
I think if Tim was here looking around, he would kind of just fall back over there in the corner somewhere at the outpouring that we have here today, because Tim wasn't that type of person to be forth. He would just give us that little smirk, wouldn't he? And say, I cannot believe y'all did this.
In Eastman, Claire Davis, 13 WMAZ, Eyewitness News.
Mary Grace Shaw is joining me live now outside Dodge County High School. Mary Grace, you were inside today for the funeral. Obviously a very emotional day. What are some of the things that stood out to you?
You know, Frank, it was very overwhelming. There were law enforcement officials from not just the state of Georgia, but from all over the country. You had people from Mississippi, law enforcement officials from Chicago, and even NYPD. And, you know, they really just all came out to show their support and come together, and what they say, back the blue.
Now, you've been in this community all week long, and you said you have seen an overwhelming outpouring of support.
Yeah, you know, just going around talking to different people. If they didn't know Officer Tim Smith personally, they had met him, encountered him, all had wonderful things to say about him. You know, he truly touched this community.
And the people you've talked to also say that they want to let people know that this shooting has actually brought this community together and is not tearing it apart.
That's right. You know, they're really using this time to come together as one and show people that, you know, this is a tragic event, but this isn't going to break them apart. They're stronger than ever right now.
Mary Grace, thanks very much. We certainly appreciate your thoughts. Of course, from the high school, then, it was the procession to where Officer Smith was going to be laid to rest, and it was a lengthy procession, as you can imagine. Hundreds of cars right there taking part in the procession. A caisson carrying Officer Smith's casket to his resting place at Green Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery. Hundreds of people leaving the school and heading over to the cemetery. Officer Smith's motorcade met along the way with salutes from those wearing uniforms. It was there when the clouds started gathering, rain clouds gathering over Eastman. The sky opened and the rain began to pour heavily, but that still did not stop the community from continuing to honor their hero, their hometown hero, including his brothers and sisters in blue. Cassandra Ortiz caught up with Officer Smith's cousin, Chris Rogers. He gave the eulogy today, and she had a chance to chat with him.
I wanted to bring it where there was no harsh feelings, because no matter what I feel, there's another family that's lost a loved one. There's two people here who's lost their lives, per se. One gonna get disciplined, one has lost his life, my cousin Tim. I wanted everybody to know that the people of Dodge County rallied together.
A very emotional, a very taxing day and a taxing time for people in this community who have been more or less through the ringer. But again, as Mary Grace was telling us, they're saying this has actually brought the community together, not tearing it apart. Eyewitness News at 6 continues right after this. But first, some more emotional sights and sounds from this day in Eastman, Georgia.
There's only one time for the annual